Welcome back to Open Your Eyes with me, Duane Moody, and of course, Isani Cayetano. Like we said before we took that break, there was a lot of events that happened over the weekend, and there were good and bad ones. Bad news to report, some of which will be in our 6:30 newscast later today. But let's start with some of the good. Taste of Belize 2016. After a hiatus, it came back to the Jewel, and we saw some new faces winning the top prizes and taking the top titles as Master Chef, Best Cupcake Decorator, Cake Decorator, a Bartender of the Year as well. So that happened this weekend, actually on Saturday, at Muffles Auditorium in Orange Walk. We haven't received all the details as yet because, of course, the BTB is still putting all those names and everything, all that information together to send out to us. But we do have some of the names of the winners, right? For Master Chef, we have a friend of Open Your Eyes, Eva Lauren Longsworth. She won Master Chef, the Master Chef competition. Also, the cupcake competition, we had Adriani Young of Belize City also taking the top spot in that competition. We also have for the cake decorating competition, it was Maria del Carmen Urbina who topped that category there. Really interesting competition is showcasing Belizean talent. I think it was one of the best things to go out. I've been there before, and we've seen all these people fight to win that to win the title. No,
I guess one of the things about this particular culinary competition is the ability of the chefs to be able to either create a dish from scratch and to localize it. You have some of these recipes that are seemingly universal, but to add that Belizean touch to it is what sort of takes it over the edge. And I think that is one of the aspects that the judges look at as well, It's a culinary experience for people who are foodies, who go out there, especially to see how food is prepared, to taste food, and to see the decoration, which we would say would be like the artistic aspect of it.
And it's so, you have to be proud of these people because they make a name for the country. Mm-hmm. You find that winning these competitions, it helps them with their resume, and restaurants and all these different places that would hire them, they would know that they know what they're doing. They know that, these persons come with that added, that X factor that would set them apart from everybody else. I think we've seen another friend of ours, Sean Quillen. He stepped out of the competition and actually became a judge, and he understands the whole aspect of taking something that is homegrown and giving it his own twist and making it, something different for the international foodies, like you were saying, and I think that's one of the things that BTB prides the competition for, the fact that it attracts people from near and far to come out and try something different.
I think what this competition does is it affords an opportunity for the big names as well as the newcomers to compete on the same platform, because this is where ideas come together. This is where creativity and skill and knowledge also comes together, and it allows for a level playing field so that you have those whose names are established, and then you have people who are relatively unknown, but they are trying their hand at making a name for themselves on this platform. So I think that's what Taste of Belize also allows for the competitors to experience.
Yes, now we'll make sure that we have a full rundown of the winners for tonight's newscast from the BTB. But there was also the Smart Mundialito that took place yesterday in Belize City. It took place at the MCC grounds, and it was a fight between City Boys and Brown Bombers. and it went straight to penalty, guys. And of course, City Boys defeated Brown Bombers, third championship overall. This is their third championship, and of course, Bronx Bombers, they were the previous champ for 2 years in a row. So they, I believe, City Boys wrested that title from the, you know.
I had the opportunity of doing an interview featuring some of these athletes, these young athletes who are participating in the Smart Mundalita Summer Camp as well. And the level of dedication that the trainers and instructors have, it's, in a sense, going from having these kids who come from various parts of our Belizean community, putting them in a program and creating a system that allows for them to not only learn how to be great sportsmen, but the idea of discipline and all of these other skills, if I may, life skills, things that you need to be able to grow and develop as a functioning member of society, which goes outside of just sports. As I mentioned, self-discipline, mannerliness, promptness, and all of these things are also being instilled in these young athletes. And I was impressed walking away from this particular story that I did, seeing that all these values are also being instilled in these kids at a young age.
Which really just, they can take it into their everyday lives and help them when they're in school to, as they grow up, to understand about the respect and the discipline that they need to succeed. I think it's really interesting when you can put a young person who is very active and take them and put them into a camp like this and see their development and see how they've transitioned. You know, I agree with you. I agree with you completely.
It's also a running program in the sense that it's an annual thing. I believe children look forward to attending football summer camp, as they call it, on a yearly basis. School is out. You have a few weeks before this camp kicks up, and in the neighborhood that I live, there's a little boy who lives, my neighbor actually, and his family is a football family, right? His uncle, his aunt, himself, his other uncle, everybody is football people in that family. And to see him and his aunt go from the St. Martin's area all the way to MCC on a daily basis in the morning, just to prepare themselves for the day in terms of athletics and the entire idea of discipline and what have you, as I mentioned earlier, it's admirable. It's something where the opportunity to participate in sports allows you to transcend certain social limits or barriers. I mean, you're meeting people from other parts of Belize City. You're learning how to interact. You're learning how to respect each other based on either cultural, racial, or other differences.
Social differences.
Yeah. And that goes beyond just the sport of football, but that's what sports does. It brings people together. It also allows them to experience that level of interaction that goes beyond borders, boundaries.
Yeah, definitely. So big up City Boys, big up Smart.
Big up Brown Bombers as well.
Yeah, Brown Bombers as well. And all the other participants, I think, Hattieville, Riverside Boys, and the rest. Big up to them, and congrats on the win. Now, we also had an international sporting event that took place in Belize, I think, since Friday. That's the Cody Kader Games 2016. Of course, the table tennis, Belize won. Ty Parkinson of Belize won gold over Sebastian Mendoza of Panama. Of course, that took place here in Belize City at the BES Gymnasium. There were events taking place basically all over the country, in the west, up north, in football, basketball, volleyball, the likes. And big up to our Team Belize who went out there. They did an amazing job. We will have an update on that as well in Sports Monday tonight.
I think Cody Kader has been one of those events that sheds new light on the need for us to focus on sports and young people. When I look at the amount of effort, either in planning, the logistic end of it, and as well as training and preparing these young athletes, I commend Belize. I commend the National Sports Council, given the fact that they had limited resources. They made that known from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. This isn't exactly where we would want to be financially, but we're doing the best with what we have, and I think that level of resourcefulness should be commended given the restrictions. Nonetheless, I believe Belize came out, and made its mark. May not have necessarily been in basketball, unfortunately, but table tennis. This is Tux Vasquez's baby, if I may.
If I'm not mistaken, I think volleyball, we came out on top as well, Isani, and that is impressive. It shows that despite having limited resources, because you said it right, I think they were, the National Sports Council has always said that they're strapped for cash, and to compete against these international teams that, funds have been pumped into them, it shows that the skill, the talent surpasses everything. If you have the talent and you know that you harness that talent, it can take you light years ahead of all the other competition. Don't matter if they have money, and I think that's what the team showed.
Yeah. A delicate balance needs to be struck in the sense that without financial resources and other resources, you can't really move far as to where you would ideally want to be. But at the end of the day, you can't discount sheer talent. So when these kids get into these programs and they excel based on their natural ability to either play football, basketball, volleyball, or table tennis, they need to be sort of pushed and encouraged, and that skill and that talent need to be honed and polished so that we can prepare them for the international stage. I believe most athletes, young or where they are presently in their career, aspire towards being out there competing with the big boys. They never tell you, oh well, I'm satisfied with only playing in Ayabra or play semi-pro ball. They see the big picture. No, I think it's on us as the Belizean society, either from an endorsement or a commercial end, or from the academic end, or those who are the ones in the driver's seat in terms of instructors. It's up to us now to help develop these athletes and hone the talent and put them out there so that they can represent Belize.
I think one of the things, it's also about the experience for these athletes to go out there and see what others are doing and knowing where they falter and where they need to be. I think that's it as well. And they exchange, the cultural exchange too, because these people they get together and they share their experiences, they share all this. So I think that's what it is too for the athletes. It's not only just getting out there and playing. It's also about the bonds and the links that they make with these other teams from these different countries. But that's the good news. We also had some bad news from the weekend. There were several murders over the weekend and shooting incidents that took place both in the city and out west. In the city, I think we had 2 murders. One that took place on Friday night.
Saturday morning.
Yeah, Saturday morning, overnight on Friday. And I believe one that took place on Saturday night itself. And then, of course, last night there was one in Roaring Creek.
This is an observation here from someone who works in the media and has had the opportunity to deal with the police department, deal with grieving families, and deal with some of the very at-risk youths who sadly turn out perpetrating some of these crimes. When you look at the effort of the police department, Sometimes we bash them. I mean, we're all critics of people in high places for whatever reason. Sometimes we find the bad more interesting to discuss than the good. But when you remove all of that and you look at what the officers are doing in terms of trying their best to keep the streets of Belize City safe, but you look at the fact that crime is so prevalent and it's rampant, it's difficult to say you will stem crime and violence in one community because there's a tendency that it pops up in another community. So it's almost as if though what has happened in terms of our social landscape, we have what is called like a hydra, a multi-headed monster, right? You try to chop one off here, it grows back fast on the other end. And in terms of limited resources, as ACP Williams mentioned, I believe it was on Thursday. Limited human resources, limited vehicular resources. So they can't be omnipresent. They can't be everywhere at all times. And you realize that sometimes they would have just left a neighborhood to go and assist in a patrol elsewhere, and that's when something happens. And you can't expect that they should have known or you know? And this is what creates that degree of difficulty. When you look at this murder on Saturday morning, it is someone that I knew personally. I don't know the individual's past per se, so I won't venture down that road. But when you look at what happened, my understanding is that Karim was leaving work, his post where he was stationed, I believe on that overnight shift or what have you, was leaving from there when he met his untimely end. And then you look at how and what drives some of these young men to be so callous. I mean, the individual was leaving work. It's not like he may have been hanging out on a street corner instigating something. Now, I don't know what the motive is behind the whole incident, but I'm just saying, nobody took into consideration that he may have been in his uniform walking home from work. They just figured, okay, there goes the person we were looking for. We may have had talks, so now that time to deal with it. There's no consideration of what the effects of this particular act is. And this is not just one isolated case. This is when you look at crime and violence in Belize on a whole. People are affected. Not only the victim whose family has to grieve him, but the entire community, the entire society feels the ripple. An incident came very close to where I live, to my home on Wednesday. And when I look at the situation, Duane, and I say, you know what? While this young man may have done some odd jobs for me around the yard and what have you, when I look at what could have been done to try to save this young life, I can say that I tried. I spoke with him. I tried giving him something to do that would have kept him occupied from time to time. But it takes a community. It's not just one person who sees potential and tries to work with you. Other people have to be encouraging of change. Other people have to see that, you know what, you're not an island. And when you look at all of what is happening in Belize City, it's a wonder how young men are able to remain positive, remain focused. Some of them who are still in school, some of them who have ambitions and goals towards becoming something. It's a wonder how they're able to maintain that composure, Duane.
But you know, Isani, I think the issue there is also the fact that a lot of these persons, they grow up with bad blood because something that had happened to maybe their parents or one of their parents or a family friend or a relative, and they come up in the system and they sweat fever for that. So when they get to the age where they can pick up a gun, they remember, oh, that person had something against my people, so I'm going to deal with them now. And we're finding that a lot of the crime that's happening is between black men and everything is related. Gang against gang, that's an issue that we're noticing lately, that a lot of gang rivalry leading to these murders, these homicides. perfect example just last week with that murder that happened, I believe, minutes between each other, one on Castle Street and then later on Cemetery Road, just as retaliation for something that had happened. And I think we saw that this weekend as well. It's yet to be confirmed by, of course, authorities, but the other murder that happened on Saturday night involved a guy that is reportedly Mr. Banner, I believe is his name, Roger Banner, and he's reportedly from Roaring Creek. And less than 24 hours later, Roaring Creek had a murder. And it's likely that it's related, but we're not sure. Like I said, it's not confirmed, but it's likely that it's related. And it goes back to where you said and what ACP Chester Williams said, the lack of resources and having to pull from one area to focus on where crime is spiking and then leaving that one unattended. And the thing is that it also has to deal with communication between the different commanders, etc. Because the fact that Mr. Banner was killed could have led to that murder that happened in Roaring Creek. What kind of mitigation was put in place to ensure that there was no retaliation or retaliatory action taken by his family? You know, we're not sure, but it's so interesting that or complex the nature of crime in Belize. And the fact that you never know where the links happen, because you might think that this person is from a particular gang, but his relatives live in a different gang territory. And you're not sure where, you're not conscious initially where the link is, but it's actually there. Belize is a small place, you know?
When you look at it as well, Duane, sometimes people fall victims of circumstances. In some cases, the individual who may have been gunned down may not necessarily have been involved in any of what is happening around him, per se. But the fact that that individual comes from a certain neighborhood, and the neighborhood is already stereotyped or looked at as a particular territory, then lo and behold, rivals come into that neighborhood. They may not necessarily find who they're looking for, but automatically the fact that here goes another young man from that neighborhood, let's send a message through him. So you find that people become victims of circumstance based on where they live, based on the fact that maybe they are schoolmates with other people who are involved in these types of activities. And it's most unfortunate that that's what the Belizean society has now become, in a sense. I mean, there's still a lot of good happening out there.
Of course.
And that also needs to be acknowledged for what it is. But you can't turn a blind eye to, you know, the erosion of certain aspects of our society.
There were also several shootings over the weekend in the city. One, Clifford Anderson, was shot while he was on the basketball court on Niels Penn Road. He is in a critical condition. We have no information other than that, but we will be looking into that, and of course all of that will be in tonight's newscast at 6:30. But there was some positive things that came out of the police department as well over the weekend, I think.
The weekly basketball games.
Their weekly basketball games, and we have those results. Game one, which was between players from Lake Eye and Southside. Of course, Southside won with 35-30 from Lake Eye. In game two, it was Lakeland versus Jump Street. Of course, Lakeland took that competition, and then in game three, it was Park Ballers versus ABS. ABS, of course, won with 33. And game four was between players from Complex and those from Jane Usher, and Jane Usher took those that competition. So of course we'll have some details on that as well, but it was all hosted at the Wesley, the basketball court by Wesley College. It was organized by, of course, the officers at Southside for the Southside Eastern Division. Just to bring all these different elements together so that people can understand that it's not always, it doesn't always have to be rivalry between people from different areas. They can come together, do something positive. It's all part of their community policing and mitigating the crime that's happening in Belize.
So there you have it. That's
a lot. And it's a lot. Of course, it's Monday. It's one of our busiest days. And so we'll have all of that for you again in our 6:30 newscast.
So what we'll do at this point, we'll take a break. And when we come back, it is to speak with Joyce Ellis of the Welcome Resource Center. And we're going to be discussing a little bit of mental health and the fact that there's this particular resource for people who are suffering from mental health illnesses.